Hi, I'm Andy Villamarzo with SBLive Sports Florida, and thank you for joining us for episode 24 of the Coastal. It's our high school football, who knows, maybe even basketball podcast, and we're going to bring on some coaches here. We're going to talk about region finals here in the Sunshine State, and we're going to bring on a coach. He's got a tough matchup. It's a rematch from the regular season. We got Sarasota Riverview head coach Josh Smithers with us, and Coach, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. And I'd be remiss before not bringing it up. This game that you guys won last week in the region semifinals, an emotional one. Former head coach John Sprague, he passed away. I know this was a very emotionally charged game for you guys. And being able to come away with a 35-30 win over a tough Manatee Hurricanes team on the road. I mean, talk about this win and just what it meant to you and your group.
Yeah, obviously, anytime that you get a chance to go into Hawkins Stadium into playoffs and beat a Manatee team, that's a special thing. But to be able to do it the same morning that Coach Sprague passed away, I know that Coach Sprague and Coach Canan had some battles over the years and had some really great wins over Manatee and some really tough losses. So it was kind of it made it a little extra special knowing that Coach Sprague was. They're watching us and looking down on us, and to be able to, win that and dedicate to Coach Sprague, it was a great thing for the program.
And just you guys just getting to kind of the teeth of the game here, your guys' offense, and somebody that I don't think is talked about enough on not just the South Suncoast, but probably the state, DJ Johnson, your running back, just another huge game from him. Braxton Thomas had a very good game at quarterback. Just kind of talk about the offense and how this group is really come together and playing really their best football.
Yeah, and I think anyone that knows anything about football knows it starts up front. And we have two offensive line coaches, Ty Rennick and Mike Grudadoria, and they've just done a phenomenal job with their offensive line. And those guys up front are tough. They take a lot of pride in what they do. And then you put a guy like DJ behind them, and obviously you've been able to see what it does for our running game. Him and Isaiah Belt, they're both over 1,000 yards rushing. Our quarterback Braxton's over 1,000 yards throwing. So, offensively, we've been able to put up some points. Really been playing our best. I think we've been playing our best offense in the playoffs these last 2 weeks, and we just need to keep it rolling for this week.
And just talk about this game coming up here, region final rematch against Venice from the regular season. Some people may look at the score and not kind of know the entirety of how that game went, but that was a closer game than that final score indicated. Just anytime you guys play Venice, I know a lot of emotions and everything running, but what is the test this time around? What do you guys have to do to be able to upend the Indians on the road?
I just think, we've tried to really hammer it home with our kids this week is that we just got to worry about ourselves. We can't get into the fact that it's Venice. It's the third round. We're playing for a regional championship in the playoffs on the road. And we've done it. We did it this past week, played a great team on the road and won, and we're going to approach it the same way. So we just really need to stay focused on Riverview and making sure that we handle, situational football better than we have the previous week or the previous game.
And how important is that, just as you go deeper into the playoffs, situational football, being able to kind of minimize penalties, kind of make sure you don't put yourself in kind of second and long, third and long situations? Just how important is that for not only the offense, but for the defense?
Oh, it's everything. You're going to get, the deeper you get, the better the teams are. And, it's, those little things that you do, whether it's, staying in bounds on 4-minute drill or getting out of bounds on a 2-minute drill or knocking a ball down on a Hail Mary, or when you take a knee, not doing a backflip and getting a 15-yard penalty. All those little things make a big difference. And you got to play good situational football. We try to directional kick a punt and we end up dropping it and fumbling it back to Venice in the first game. Those are all things that are, they just become magnified in the playoffs. And playoff Venice is a different team than a regular season Venice. So they're going to be much better than they were the first time we saw them. And, we're going to have to play our best game.
And any team I'm going to bring on here for talking about regional final football, just tell me about your Thanksgiving tradition. Like, what do you guys do on Thanksgiving? What do you do for the players? And do you get the families out there? Tell me a little bit about how Sarasota Riverview does it.
Yeah, fortunately, we've had this experience a few times already, and so we usually get we'll get like coffee, orange juice, and waters. We'll get donuts and bagels and other pastries, and we try to set up a really nice spread. And we invite all the families, especially the coaches' families, because they sacrifice the most with us being gone. And then we also invite all of our alumni and our former Rams to come out, and we expect to have over 100 people this year out there. We were I think at 80 last year, and it seems like the response has been really good since we posted it. And just have a chance to, this year will be special. We get a chance to not only kind of reminisce and be thankful for just being able to play and be thankful for each other and our families, but we'll get a chance that hopefully a bunch of guys will get together, be able to share some great John Sprague stories, and kind of share and talk about Coach Sprague.
And I got to ask you, as a head coach, is there anything better than practicing on Thanksgiving going into a regional final?
No, it's the best. I remember as a kid going to practice on Thanksgiving with my dad, and it's great having my son out there and being able to practice on Thanksgiving. It's the best.
All right. Well, Coach, go enjoy it with your team, and good luck this Friday against Venice in a regional final.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and thanks again for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And that is Sarasota Riverview head coach Josh Smithers. He's joined us on our episode 24 here. And so I guess we'll say our Thanksgiving edition. So up next, we're going to have Adam Franco, offensive coordinator over at Cocoa High School. He's going to talk about the Tigers and how they're going to take on South Sumter here. And welcome back for our 24th episode of the Coastal. And promise it's our Thanksgiving edition. So what would, a little bit of turkey in hand. We got to bring in Cocoa Tigers here. We got Adam Franco, offensive coordinator of the Tigers. And Coach, thank you for coming on with us. And we got some playoff football we got to talk about here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate everything you guys have been doing all season. I mean, I saw you at one of our games. I see you every week. I read your stories. I know you log the miles necessary to truly cover the state. And I think that's why everyone's so appreciative of the content y'all are putting out, because to go from all the four corners of Florida, that's a lot of time.
Yes. And Coach, thank you so much. I mean, yeah, I've been to Niceville, Naples, Cocoa, South Miami, been to Bartram Trail, been all over the place. I feel like that is what we need in order to actually be able to take a look at all these teams and say, who are the top teams? And you guys are definitely one of those teams that I'd say, hey, they can match up with just pretty much anybody. And we got to talk about your game here, regional final, a very familiar opponent for you guys, the South Sumter Raiders. You guys went there last year, won at their place. Now they're coming to you guys. You guys are the number one seed in your region. Just talk about this rematch. And I mean, anything different about the Raiders this time around that you see?
Well, I mean, they're always going to be coached really, really well. Their head coach, Ty, is a great coach, been there for a while. Their defensive coordinator is a prior NFL guy. So, when you watch their team on film, especially when you watch their defense, everyone is exactly where they're supposed to be. They play gap sound football. You never see them take plays off. So, and this is what you expect, right? It's Florida. You get to the regional final. You expect the team across from you to be coached well. You expect them to be ready to play. And then we had a good game at their place last year. This is actually the third straight year we will see them in the regional final. So we're excited for it.
You talk about two teams that are very familiar with one another, so I'm sure kids will be on a first name basis with one another when they are talking on the field. I mean, coming off this Dunellen win, and in the first round, you guys throttled Eustis, just being able to kind of do what you guys been doing offensively. Do you feel like this is the best you've seen this offense play, or do you feel like there's better football ahead for Brady Hart in this group?
We're playing great football right now. I mean, Brady Hart came along faster than anything I could have imagined. I've known Brady since he was about 12, 13 years old. He used to play in the Satellite Beach Pop Warner right near where I live, and that's where my kids play as well. And it's been kind of refreshing to see his love of the game, how well he picks up concepts. And then also as a coaching staff, we played Jones week 1 to what we do now. Ryan is, I think Ryan Snyder's best coach in the state of Florida. What he can do with a quarterback, it's not like Ryan says, hey, this is exactly how we're going to run our offense. And this is, you will adapt to my offense. what our coaching staff has done really, really well with the players that we have is every single year we adapt to the guys that we have, to what our strengths are. Where's Brady Hart at? What's his best way of seeing the field? What's his best reads? Then we got 4 great receivers. We have an entire returning O-line coached by Coach Parham. When you start having the consistency in coaching we have, and it's the same guys, and then you can kind of just talk pretty bluntly as a staff, and then with your players. I think that's why we're rolling right now, and I don't think Brady's even near his potential yet. I mean, he's only a sophomore. I think by the time he's a senior, he's a top 5 quarterback in the nation.
And that's scary. I mean, got to see you guys against Stanford Seminole, and that was the game that obviously it was a roller coaster type game. It's kind of had your highs, had your lows, but once you guys started hitting your highs, started running away with it. And I think you got to talk about just how important was it to play these nationally ranked teams towards the front end of your schedule. And people don't realize it, but you guys absolutely loaded up this schedule. And how much does that prepare you guys for the deep playoff run and makes these games, I don't want to say easier or too much easier because these are tough teams, but in a sense, it kind of does, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the COVID year, we were forced to play an in-county schedule. And nothing against our county, but when we got to our game against Cardinal Gibbons, we're 14-0. Cardinal Gibbons had to travel to us because we were the 1 seed for that region, and they thumped us. And Cardinal Gibbons had a great team that year. But what we noticed was we have to go find out who's who can actually make these blocks. Are these concepts and plays real? Or are we getting away with a bad concept or philosophy just because we're playing inferior talent? So we said never again will we be put in this situation where we're 14-0 and we don't even get to the state championship game, or 13-0 we don't get to the state championship game because we run into someone who's like, no, this is real football, and bop, and we're like, oh my God, it's 21-0. We're like, oh, so that's what and it's really hard to schedule. That's one of the things. Are talking about classifications and whether you should have districts or not have districts. If you want to see what it's like, Coco picks the phone up and calls everybody, and we do not get a lot of phone calls back. So that's why our schedule really looks like it is. We just say, hey, screw it. If you're willing to play us, we'll play you. We'll come to you. You come to us. We don't really care. If you call us, we're going to take the game.
Well, and if you're a team that ends up listening to this, you just heard it right there. Phone's open, lines open. Give them a call. They're probably looking for teams right now for the 2024 schedule because I know it's not easy when you're Coco to call around to any team and say, hey, you want to come play us? And just seeing the Tigers, definitely one of the top teams in the state. And we got to talk about this a little bit. It's public versus private conversation. It's been kind of hot on social media. And obviously there's a proposed Open 32 taking the top 32 teams based off the FHSA rankings for next year. It's on the table. It's not approved, but a lot of reaction to that. I put a hypothetical, who would the 32 teams be, which I think the most notable team we saw, Miami Central, would not be in that 32, which I think would be a little crazy. But just give me your take on the possibility of an Open 32 team division based off the final regular season rankings for 2024, and just kind of your touch on public versus private, because I know you've kind of led the conversation on this.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I'll be transparent. I was a private school kid. My mom was a lunch lady at American Heritage, and I got to go to American Heritage for free because of that. And I played football. That's where I played football. So I was a private school kid, so I've seen that side of the coin. I think let's start first with the Open 32. I'm not really opposed to the idea of Open 32. But when you start looking at that list of teams, and this because you travel the state, you do your due diligence, you get past 6, 7, 8, and it's a different breed of football, right? Every year, if you go back and look historically too, every year that top 8, that year it was playing at another caliber. So I like the concept of where they're trying to go, right? Open 32 removes some historical barriers. So let's put in context just this year. So if we put in context this year, we're about to play South Sumner for the 3rd straight time in the regional final. But if they say there was an Open 4, right? If there was an Open 4, we took the top 4 teams, Coco, Chaminade, Norland, and St. Thomas. So one would play 4, and I promise you, Coco would love nothing more than to play St. Thomas again with our referees this time. And then, Chaminade plays Miami New Orleans. I mean, first of all, those two matchups would be everyone would want to see the Coco St. Thomas rematch. Let's face it. I mean, that was a great game the first time had happened, and I guarantee that when we play the second time, it would be just as good game. And who knows, flip a coin which way it falls. And I think Chaminade New Orleans would be very similar. That would open up the door, because now you would remove Chaminade, who's the clear-cut favorite of 1M to win the whole thing. You'd remove Coco, who a lot of people pick us to be the favorite to win 2S. You remove St. Thomas, who's the favorite to win 3M, right? And you win New Orleans, who, 2M. I mean, that's just a juggernaut. You better hope your team is playing flawlessly in 2M, because that's just a loaded division. But removing those 4 teams, you open the door for people that if you remove Chaminade, you probably have a pretty good game between CCC and another team. You move Coco, you're probably getting maybe a Bishop Verot, Florida High, Bradford, Florida High game, right? I think that's the way to do the open division. If you go to 32, even you go to 16, anything more than 8, in my opinion, is too much, because what you'll end up having is you'll have some team I'll give you a good example. There was a year, maybe it was 2012 or 2013. St. Thomas goes to Manatee. Manatee's having a stellar season, and they running clock Manatee to go to the state championship. They go to the state championship, and they beat Bloomingdale. And it was Bloomingdale's greatest team they've ever had. It was a once-in-a-lifetime team that Bloomingdale had. If there was an Open 4 back then, we get a Bloomingdale-Manatee matchup for the state championship. 2 very, very deserving teams without St. Thomas, who, that's right around the time they started their fight, one of their streaks of wins. So I think that's where the Open could benefit, right? Remove a roadblock on a couple years here and there, and let's see how the rest of it sheds out. But anything more than 8 teams, we risk doing what happened in college football of watering down the state championships. Right. Let the open, let the 4 top teams play, and the winner go play in the Geico National Championship, and then the state championships still have a ton of meaning. Because I tell you right now, I walk in the Coco locker room and I say, "Hey guys, we're not playing South Sumner anymore. We're going to play St. Thomas, and if we beat them, we play the winner of Chaminade New Orleans to go to national championship. Our team erupts."
That would be, hey, I would have to jump in the car, fill up the gas tank, and get over there, because that would be a game. I didn't get to see that the first time around. Only got to hear about everything that happened. But obviously, seeing all the teams around the state, and giving kind of my take on just seeing all the teams throughout the state and kind of where people are ranking them, it's you got to see them to actually be able to say, do they have the athletes? I feel like a team like Niceville, you saw them play Bartram Trail, which you look at Bartram Trail, they lost to Buchholz during the season, which got to see all 3 of these teams. Buchholz is a team I feel like you could say they're pretty good because their offense moves very fluidly. Their quarterback play from Trace Johnson, who's just a sophomore, really like what they're doing. And then they got Power 5 guys on that front 7, which they're going to cause problems for anybody. And then you take a look at Niceville, they got some nice guys. I mean, not to pun, the Eagles at all, but I'm not sure that would be a great matchup for them playing a Buchholz if you had to match them up in a 32 type matchup. But then you got to look at that across the board, and you got to actually see these teams to be able to walk away and say, could they match up? And that'd be a good game, because I saw Walton. That would be a team that would have made the Open 32 hypothetically if we had it this year. But you don't have Miami Central. But then who's Walton playing? And no disrespect to what Walton's done this year. Braves have had a nice season. But they're not going to be able to compete against a Coco or St. Thomas Aquinas or one of these powerhouse teams that, would be considered elite. So, yes, definitely agree. It waters down things a little bit. Top 8, top 4. I think you're going to get the best matchups, and you're going to get to be able to see who legitimately could be the top team in the state of Florida. And then maybe you get a shot to see who's the best team in the country. So love the dialogue, insight, Coach. It's definitely a conversation that's going to continue right now, after the season, off season, until they make a decision on what they're exactly going to do. But it's great to hear from someone that's on a staff and with a team that I think would have a shot to play with really anybody in the country. So, Coach, I thank you again for coming on the Coastal with us and gave great insight not only to your game, but also when we're talking about the Open 32 division, the possible potential. Got to use those words because it's not official. But,
Yeah,
Coach, thank you.
No, appreciate you so much, and I'm sure we'll cross paths again. We got a goal to be back in the state championship. I'm sure for there, you'll have some miles left to log to get to Tallahassee. So we look forward to seeing you. And honestly, I think you look at this slate of games this week in the regional finals. You know, there's a couple good games in quarterfinals, semis. You start getting to the regional finals, you start going, ooh, these are really big games. That's how I kind of picked up on the public-private was really watching games. And now we get to the Final Four in the state championship, and it's Florida football, right? Eventually, all roads lead to a really, really good game. So thanks for having me, Andy. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And that is Cocoa offensive coordinator Adam Franco giving us great insight here. Not only does game state, Open 32, that's going to be a possible, potential, maybe a confirmed thing here after the season's over. And we're going to continue that talk. Heck, I've talked about having a roundtable talk, so we may bring Coach into that later on. So we're going to
Damon Craig to do a roundtable with some coaches, please throw my name in the hat. And if you just look at my post today, big time coaches, John Peacock responding, Will, former Cocoa coach responding, Scott Sumner's coach on there responding. There's a lot of big time coaches who've been around in this state for a really long time that I think, you want those guys at the table when you make the decision. That's years and years of quality coaching and a ton of state championships and guys that know what it takes to win in the state of Florida, to be at that table. That would be pretty cool.
Well, hey, if anyone's going to try and make it happen, I'm going to try to bring you all together and let's talk about it. So, Coach, thank you once again. And up next, we're going to have Bartram Trail head coach Corey Johns. Actually, just talked about the Bears. We're going to have him on, and we're going to talk a little bit about their rematch against Buchholz. So, up next, Corey Johns. And welcome back to the Coastal. It's our 24th episode here, and we got one more coach here on our Thanksgiving edition here, and bringing on Bartram Trail head coach Corey Johns. And Coach, welcome to the show. And we got Thanksgiving football here.
Yeah, man, there's not much better. So we're excited about it, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I got to talk about the most well-traveled man and the most well-traveled team, I think, in the state right now. You're going to Panhandle not once. These guys went twice. Guys went, and I know about that drive. I went to Niceville I went from the Tampa area, so that's not far from your old stomping grounds at Nature Coast, and that is a drive. You got to tell me about. How long did that take to get to Navarre, Niceville, and how is that taxing at all? Is there any jet lag? What did you have to do to make sure your guys weren't getting off the bus like, oh, what the heck?
Yeah, the first time we went over there for Navarre, was I guess a learning experience just to work it all out. But we left school around 8 a.m. On Friday morning and stopped at FSU, did a walkthrough. We tried to plan out a couple stops, whether it was at rest stops or at FSU, and then we ate pregame meal at Olive Garden, and then tried to get to the field early enough for them to get off the bus, walk around before we actually had to get dressed and start our pregame routine. So we tried to make sure that we had enough time to, break it all up and not make it one 5.5-hour bus ride, which I thought we did a really good job with, and our kids handled it pretty well. And then going back over the next week against Niceville, we were pretty good. We were veterans about it, I guess you would say. So we handled it pretty well. No problems really going over there during the game. The problem is coming back, leaving at 8 a.m. and then we get back at 6:30 or 7 a.m. and the sun's coming up. It's pretty much a 24-hour day. So, that can be a lot. And then for the coaches, we get back at 7 a.m. and then you already got something in your huddle waiting to trade film, and then when you got to do stats, and then you got to start on next week's game. So it really delays the preparing process for the next week. Is the biggest thing it does for the coaches.
And I mean, those two games, one was just 67-55, high scoring. I saw video, it was raining and everything else, and you guys managed to put up all those points, and then you get this game against Niceville, 28-21, and you just, you guys grind it out, win that one. I mean, just how important was it to get those couple wins and have the momentum heading into a rematch here against Buchholz?
Yeah, honestly, after the first time we played them, they beat us thoroughly. We did not play well. We could actually, I don't think we could have played any worse. And they played a perfect football game, man. They were really good that night. We talked about that. That was our one of our goals. Obviously, is that maybe play for a state championship. But after that loss, our goal was to get a chance to play Buchholz again. So that was our focus immediately after that game. Everything we did was to work towards this opportunity. Going to the Panhandle twice was very interesting. The game against Navarre was wild. Never been involved in something quite well. I guess I have when we played Hudson at Nature Coast. It was very similar to that, but we just couldn't get it to where we could just finish it and get it out of hand. And something would always happen to bring it back, to a closer game. And then the Niceville game was a similar situation. Honestly, we at halftime it should have been 24-7. Really nothing. We allowed a block punt for a touchdown. So we didn't score twice in the red zone. We didn't execute down there, and a lot of that had to do with the environment and the band going into their end zone where the band was. We had 3 false start penalties in the red zone. And didn't get to finish. But for our kids to go in there and do what they did, and get those wins, and then get this opportunity, to go play one of the best teams in the state, and get what we talked about the entire time. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I do think we're going to play much better than we did last time. I think we're a different football team.
It's crazy to think, just a kind of a little, I don't know, observation is I think every team you just mentioned, even the Nature Coast Hudson game from last year when you're at Nature Coast, I've seen every single one of those teams. Navarre, Niceville, you guys. I've seen Buchholz against Mosley in the opening round, and then obviously Nature Coast and Hudson. So that's why it's like, wow, I got to see every single one of those teams at some point in the last couple of years. And this Buchholz team, got to see them. They defeated Mosley in that opening round very soundly. Had a little bit tougher time against Ponte Vedra. Just for you guys in this rematch, what do you have to do? I mean, obviously their offense with Trace Johnson, a very kind of timing offense, and then defensively the strength is in that front 7. What do you have to do differently to be able to pull off a win at Citizens Field this Friday?
Yeah, they're on offense last time they were perfect. The quarterback I think was 20 of 23 for 400 yards. And even if he did miss a throw, off a little bit, they caught it anyway. So they were very good that night. I just think we have to focus a little bit more on being us. I got away from. I think calling plays the way that we do things. Lathan only had 9 carries in that game. I'm pretty sure he's averaging over 20 carries a game in every other game that we played, which I think is a big deal because Lathan's very good. Also, the other guys that we want to make sure touch the football didn't touch it enough. And for me, I think that's the biggest thing is making sure the guys who are supposed to have the football in their hands have it. And then whatever happens, happens. But I have to do a better job of that, and then let the chips fall where they may. But I do think we've gotten better. Our offensive line all year long has been a merry-go-round of 8 people, really 9 people. And this will be the first time we've had what we thought was going to be the starting five.
All right, Coach. Well, you guys are going to play Buchholz again, but the big talk here around Thanksgiving, other than preparation for these regional final games, talk about the FHSA's proposal that they had at their last board meeting here in early November of a potential elite open division of 32 teams based on the final rankings by the FHSA at the end of the regular season. And they would take those 32 teams and put them in their own elite playoff bracket. And your team would be, I know, one of those teams in that 32. I did a hypothetical if they did it this year. I mean, what's your thoughts? Do you feel like this is good for high school football in Florida, or do you feel indifferent? I mean, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do like the fact that they're searching for something to try to make it better, and a little bit more equitable. And I do think that open division would create a lot of good football games. But I don't know that they're getting to the root of the problem they're trying to solve in inequalities. I do think that the biggest problem is still public versus private and different rules on what they can do. Just an example here in the Jacksonville area is bowls. They're allowed to pay for kids to go to school there or put them on scholarship and allow them to go to their school. Where else can you do that? And I do think that that's where the problem lies, and I think that's what they're trying to separate by having that open division and having those schools, American Heritage, St. Thomas Aquinas, things like that. But like I said, I don't know that they're getting to the root of the problem by creating an open division. And then how do you determine that? Because you're going to have 32 teams. And who knows who's going to be good the next year. I mean, you might have 37 seniors and graduate everybody, and then now you're going to go have to play in the open division, which is fine. You can schedule whatever games you want to, but then when the playoffs start, I mean, you're going to kind of go into a really of a murderer's row of things, and you may not be prepared for that. That may not be what you are built for that year. So, I don't know, man. I do think that the suburban and the metro thing has been better than what it was before, but I also think that there's definitely ways that it could be improved upon. But I do think that I know that most of the public school coaches just want equality across the board. I know kids can go wherever they want to now, but being a private school and being able to offer kids things that, like we have right now, we have two of our offensive linemen that were going to be here this year that got pulled over to bowls, and openly their coaches told them that they were going to be able to go over there and play, and offered them. One of them was, I think, 50% scholarship, and the other one, I'm not quite sure, but so we lost two of our offensive linemen that could have helped us with depth this year to a private school. So it's good that they're searching for ways to make it better, but I'm not quite sure that that's the solve of the root of the problem.
And one kind of scenario, or just something to bring up, or food for thought, Georgia, I believe it was a month ago, they went ahead and finalized kind of a public and then private. They have their own classification that is all private schools, and I believe all the other classifications are filled with public schools. Do you feel like something like that, then along with kind of having their own playoffs amongst those teams, do you feel like that's something that kind of finds more the root of the problem, where you're having public schools on their own classifications, then private schools on their own, and they kind of battle it out amongst themselves?
No, absolutely. I think that's a phenomenal idea. I mean, really, when you look across the state of Florida, the only public school that's been able to play with these private schools is Cocoa. I don't know of another public school that consistently can go line up with these people and be competitive. St. Thomas is a great example of that. Chaminade Madonna is another example of that. They may be. That's why also that enrollment is not necessarily, I think, that a very important category. I do think we probably should use a multiplier for traditional students and non-traditional students as well, because Chaminade Madonna may be one of the smaller schools in the state of Florida, but they can beat anybody. So I'm not quite sure that enrollment is the right thing to be using to classify schools as well. But it's a hard job to have to be able to organize this. But I think Georgia took a step in the right direction by separating public and private, and then you can always tweak it year to year to make it better. But I think they have the right idea.
Well, you heard from Coach Corey Johns, and there's a lot of coaches I think that have kind of via social media have kind of shown what they feel like is kind of like a similar view, or they do feel like the Open 32 is a step at least in the right direction of trying to figure it out or come up with an idea to maybe help us or kind of separate the top teams versus, a lot of the other teams that feel like they want to compete for a state championship. So, Coach, we thank you for coming on once again with us at SBLive here, and good luck on Friday against Buchholz, and hopefully we're talking to you again here in the playoffs.
All right, Andy. As always, man, I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, hopefully we're back here again, man.